I've been looking at every 3D Universe Grand Theft Auto game, from Grand Theft Auto 3 all the way up until 5, to see how all the later ports of them compare to the original releases. And Brandon, you've been going through some of the GTAs recently as well, so it's nice to rope you in on this as well.
Yeah, I'm playing through the definitive edition on Switch, so it's my first experience playing through 3, Vice City, and San Andreas.
And that's definitely a severe case of differences. But when they generally port the original to another system, like PS2 to PC, they tend to lose a little something, I feel, every time. So I wanted to get into this, and 3 and Vice City aren't as interesting as the others, so we can go through those pretty fast. But one thing that the PlayStation 2 versions have is a toggle called Trails, which is on by default. And it was kind of like a form of motion blur, but it also just kind of adapted everything. And you see it in the opening cutscene there. But in the clip I provided you, it's on in the opening cutscene and I turn it off in the gameplay. And it's interesting to see how much it affects, because it's not just the way the frames look, which is definitely different, but it's also the lighting's quite different. Like, there's more of a blue hue when you have Trails on. And a lot of people just didn't know you could turn that off. So to them, the vibe of GTA 3 and Vice City is kind of in that Trails identity. But if you turn that off, I think you just kind of get what the PC version looks like.
Yeah, it kind of looks like you're smearing the image over in Vaseline.
Yeah, that's definitely what it looks like. And I find it kind of hard to play it that way because it feels like it's just chugging, even though it isn't really. But that's just the effect that you get there.
Yeah, it does look slower, even though it's not technically. It looks rough. I would not want to play it that way.
But you can just turn it off, and then you pretty much get the PC version, apart from the camera angle's a bit different. But I think GTA 3 is just fine on PC. Like this isn't a severely downgraded version, but I think we're going to get to a point where the artistic vision kind of gets lost with some of these ports. But not really with 3. So let's go ahead straight to Vice City, and this has the exact same thing. We have Trails on in the beginning, and I turn it off in the gameplay. And I think Vice City is actually a bit more severe with how much the Trails affects the visual style. If you just go to a cutscene with like a blue sky, like, the color of blue is different, right? Like it's like a lighter blue on PlayStation 2, whereas you just get more of a default blue on PC. And I think that particular shade of blue is kind of what I associate with Vice City. It's a strange thing to pinpoint, but that kind of color scheme is just vastly different when you turn the Trail system off.
It's just straight up a different color palette, like top to bottom. I find the PS2 one more pleasant to look at. Like the PC port is more saturated, but I feel like it's losing a little bit of its identity there.
But it's the exact same as 3. You turn Trails off and you basically get what PC looks like. So there's not a whole lot to really complain about. I think Vice City and 3, they're good ports. There are some bugs introduced in the PC version, but all in all, they look pretty much the same. Although on PC you can, of course, scale the draw distance out further, you can get better performance. But I think San Andreas is where it gets really debatable. Everybody always thinks the burnt orange color scheme, the orange skies, even with the definitive edition, it launched in a pretty vanilla looking state, and then they patched it with classic lighting, which is the orange burn. But that orange color scheme was only ever on PS2. And when you put them side by side with the original PC version, it's actually kind of crazy what the difference looks like. And I think the original color scheme was there to hide the PS2's limitations, to hide the draw distance and the pop-in. They just kind of hid everything behind an orange fog. But it was so memorable that that's what people remember the game looking like, even though it was just on PS2.
Yeah, I mean, looking at these games side by side, they almost don't look like the same thing. It's that stark of a difference. I've been playing the definitive edition, and I've been switching the lighting on and off just to kind of get a feel for it. Again, I feel like too much of its identity is tied to the way the sunlight kind of burns over the whole image. It's like it's sun-kissed, but I like that.
Yeah, I don't like it without it. When it's just, you can see everything, it feels kind of bare, like something's missing. Almost like it's like previs. It's like an example of what the final image is going to look like. It's just missing something, and there's too much clarity almost without it.
Yeah, some of the backgrounds look like they're lit too much. I like the contrast better in the PS2 version.
Yeah, everything from color scheme as well. Like, again, the skies. The sky in San Andreas, when it's blue, when it's not orange, it's just a blue. It's such a memorable shade. Like, the skies aren't usually that kind of color in games. And it just gives you such a distinct look. I don't like how it looks on PC or Xbox, but that PS2 version is just really nice looking. And this is also the first instance where the trails effect is only turned on when you're speeding in a car. So you only get that sort of low frame rate motion blur when you're going really fast. Otherwise, it's adaptive, which is kind of the ideal mix between the two, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it makes the image more pleasant to look at. Prior to this, it was just way too extreme. Like, if the idea is to limit motion clarity to reduce like motion sickness, I think it was having the opposite effect for me.
You can definitely debate things when it comes to the visuals themselves, because outside of the art style and outside of like the cutscene direction with all the lighting, PC does have its benefits. Higher draw distance, they sometimes put more objects in the frame, but there's also a few effects that are exclusive to PlayStation 2. There's some transparencies that a lot of machines couldn't do in that era because of PS2's like really high fill rate, which Xbox and PC couldn't really replicate in that time. So there's some effects that PS2 does pull off better, but all in all, I think just artistically PS2 wins in that one. But in terms of like which one's better or worse, it's definitely a artistic feeling rather than a pure raw result. But then we have Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories, and these are definitely interesting because they were handheld games. They were PSP games that were then ported to PlayStation 2. And you would think because PlayStation 2 has a lot more, hardware to work with, that this would just be the easy win for PS2. But I don't think it actually is at all. The PS2 version is erratic in performance, going all over the place, whereas PSP, it has its dips, but it's way more stable than PS2 ever is.
Yeah, I mean, even though I'm not playing it myself, I'm just looking at it here, and it just has the effect of looking really choppy because the frame rate isn't consistent.
But in terms of the visual identity, I think there's a lot more nuance there. Because I think PSP's brighter, one, because it's a handheld screen, so you want to get that bright image, but also because it can't do shading quite the same way. But just looking at them, what do you gravitate towards? Like PSP or PS2 here?
I think the PSP, actually. The PS2 has kind of like this gloomy, cold color temperature, but it's really extreme. Like, I'd say almost too extreme.
Yeah, almost dull looking to an extent.
Yeah.
But this was a crazy ambitious game. Like, it was near the PSP's launch, and they just shoved Liberty City on a handheld. And it's so good that they could just port it back to the system that GTA 3 originated from, and it felt like a normal game. But yeah, I tend to agree. I think the PSP version is the one to go back to. There is also an iOS version that runs at 60.
Oh.
That's the only other way to play Liberty City Stories, so maybe that's the ideal one. But it depends if you want to play on a phone or not. But there is one other option there between PSP, PS2, and then phone. But then Vice City Stories did not get a phone release. Only Liberty City Stories did. And this one is a lot better on PS2 compared to Liberty City Stories. The frame rate still isn't perfect, but it runs better. And I think there's a bit more nuance to which one might be superior. But I still, in terms of visuals, something about that PSP version is still just, I don't know, appealing to me a little bit more.
I will say I like the kind of gradient in the sky on the PS2 version. Kind of like yellow towards the horizon line and it gets blue as it goes up. That's a nice little touch.
It definitely is. But I don't think there's really a correct answer here. I might gravitate more to PSP, but they're both pretty good. This one really needs just another release, because Liberty City Stories got it on phones, but Vice City Stories is kind of stuck in this not too ideal place on either one. But it's a great game, and really pushed what PSP to its boundaries and what it could do.
Yeah, amazing.
And then we get to GTA 4. And this one is just kind of funny, because there is a mod out there that reverts GTA 4 back to its Xbox 360 kind of state on PC. But otherwise, you've got a kind of broken version on PC, where in cutscenes, the models animate at a really choppy rate. So everything's moving normal apart from the models. The color grading is just not there. A lot of the effects, so you look at trees in the distance and they will have missing transparencies, missing alphas. It's all kind of broken in a lot of ways. It's still perfectly playable, but there's a lot of broken aspects to it. Another thing about GTA 4 is it's unlocked on Xbox 360. So it's running, it can hit 60 frames per second, but it basically never does. It more so hits around 30 and below. But the game was coded to kind of have those frame rate drops. So when you force it to 60 frames per second, you get some oddities, like motorcycles will slide more, or you go on those with those cleaner, what do you even call it, those cleaner lifts, and they just go faster at 60 frames per second, and it's harder to climb ladders at 60 frames per second. And there's one really just egregious thing. At the very end of the game, right before like the final cutscene, there's a QuickTime event where like you're on a helicopter holding on for life, and you have to tap the A button. But the game is coded to get those timings in at around 30 FPS. So if you're hitting 60 or above on PC, it's almost impossible to do that. There's like a YouTube video out there of this guy just showing you how to hold this controller in the most sexual-looking way. I don't know what he's doing, but he manages to pull it off. But you really have to, like, it's almost impossible to finish the game at a frame rate that's locked at 60. So there's lots of issues with the PC version. And I think even artistically, you kind of miss just how the game looks.
Yeah, that's a shame. It's funny you bring this up because I tried playing GTA 4 on PC just a few days ago, and for whatever reason, my controller wasn't working, so I didn't get very far. But I don't know. There was something about the image that looked kind of flat to me, and I couldn't really put my finger on it. But seeing the 360 version kind of puts that into perspective.
Yeah, there's more oddities too. The higher your resolution is, the higher the camera is zoomed in on cutscenes. So framing gets different depending on how high res you're going.
That definitely affected me because I played at 1440p.
Yeah, there's lots of strange little things out there. But there is a mod called Fusion Fix. Came out around a year ago, and it just aims to fix everything. So all those strange little oddities are pretty much fixed. I think there's still a few things tied to the frame rate they couldn't quite resolve. But it gives you a much nicer interface so you can just like raise the resolution and frame cap way easier. It gives you alpha transparencies in the original PC state, in their console state, and in a state that kind of mixes the two together. So you can mix and match how the game looked on console, replicate that, get the lighting back, and then just go further with it. So Fusion Fix, it's the most ideal way to play. It's unofficial though. But yeah, it does kind of fix GTA 4 on PC.
Hey, we do what we have to.
Yeah, GTA 5 is very interesting because this came out on 3 different generations of console. It used to be that a console got 3 GTAs, and now it's GTA gets 3 generations. And so much has changed between 360 and current day. But I think 360 still holds up really well. Like, just putting them side by side, it still manages to look really good. But things did change. So in general, like the color scheme has changed a little bit, but the biggest part for me is actually gameplay. So with the PlayStation 4 version, GTA 5 got a first-person mode, and because of that, they had to change how damage on cars worked. Because if your car got too damaged and you're in first person, all those smoke effects are going to obscure your vision. So they kind of got rid of a lot of that stuff. So cars have like more of a tangible difference in damage back on 360. So like now, if you crash on PS5, you don't really feel the impact of that crash. And I kind of feel like there's a big like gameplay element just sort of taken out of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's player feedback. One of the most important elements of a game like this. You want to feel like what's happening is happening. So that's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, especially coming after GTA 4, where like, you definitely feel every crash because that game's like very heavy and physics driven, whereas 5 isn't so much. But then you take like that visual element away too, and it's just kind of gone. But there's more stuff in 5. Like when they changed a lot over the years about just the general map design. So some artistic structures that were made for the original were taken out. I think that might have been because of like the original artist who made that in real life didn't want it in the game. But there's stuff that's still preserved on that original disc, which is quite cool to see. But I think this is more so just interesting to go back about, like 15 years and see how much has changed. And really, other than expanding foliage and adding a few extra details, not that much is actually that different between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I see a little bit of lighting changes, very subtle, but overall it's just sharper.
There are mild differences to the lighting and color scheme, but not drastic enough that I think makes either version like worse than the other. But this isn't I wouldn't say play 360 over PS5 because I think PS5 does go a long way, especially like adding ray tracing, adding 60 FPS. It's obviously the easier version to play and the more ideal version to play. But yeah, this is just an interesting one to go back and compare.
Yeah, to be honest, like I hadn't looked at the original version in so long, I kind of forgot that it looked different to begin with.
But I think the answer to the question of like which GTA ports, when you go back through them, which one's actually worse than the original, it's difficult to answer. It depends how attached you are to that Trails effect, because some people are very nostalgic for it. But in most cases, I think San Andreas is, and I guess San Andreas and 4 are the real outliers here, where 4 just isn't very good on PC. And then San Andreas, I think, just kind of loses the artistic vision. We also have Chinatown Wars with PSP and DS. DS, I think, from a gameplay perspective, you can see more vertically. So on PSP, you can see more horizontally, which isn't that important for a game that's top-down. So I think being able to see more vertically is more important. And the mini-map on the touchscreen shows you more as well. So just from a gameplay perspective, I think I'll go with that version. But the two look very different artistically. But yeah, I think 4 and San Andreas are the real ones. Where I'd say like those ones are probably better in their original state.
Yeah, I mean, based on what you've presented here, I think I agree. I do want to talk about the motion trails for a second. If you're nostalgic for that, you're wrong. I'm kidding.
Well, even without like the motion blur, what do you think about the visual effects though? They're just dismissing how it looks frame by frame, like in terms of what the lighting, like what it does to change the lighting and everything.
I think the lighting, I definitely think gets worse without it, in some respects. But that motion blur it's really distracting.
I don't disagree. But yeah, that's just like going back through every GTA before 6, apart from 1 and 2 on PS1. Yeah, I think that's the general evidence, the general figures we have to show you here. What do you guys think, though? Are there any games that you think that we were wrong about, like you think you preferred on the later ports? How do you feel? Let us know. And we will catch you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.